Big warm welcome to everybody today. My name is Alicia Foreman and I work with Neo Intelligence, and I'm really excited to bring you today's webinar, which is a partnership in conjunction with NumberGroup. Today we're going to be talking about 5 steps for subcontractors to consider around streamlining their end of year preparation. Absolutely timely for us as we come closer to 30 June and starting the beginning of FY25. So just a couple of notes today. We are recording this webinar, so we will be able to send you a copy of it once it's completed. That will be sent out to everyone who has registered. If you have any questions throughout the webinar, you are also very welcome to pop those into the Q&A section. We might get to those during the time, but I'm just telling you right now, we've got a jam-packed webinar with a lot of information to share with you today. And in the case that we don't get to the Q&A, we will definitely follow up with you following on from the webinar. All right, I want to introduce the speakers for today. We have 2 great speakers. As I mentioned, we have NumberGroup joining Neo Intelligence. We're very good friends of ours here at Neo Intelligence. And I'm excited to welcome Hairul Lutfi. He is the founder and he's an accountant at NumberGroup. A little bit about Hairul. So Hairul has a Bachelor in Management majoring in accounting, and he has got over 17 years experience specializing in accounting for SMEs. He's got a proven track record of helping businesses scale and thrive, and he has a particular focus on the construction and the tech spaces. Hairul is fueled by passion for family and empowering his clients' businesses, and he's built NumberGroup Accounting from the ground up himself. He has family values at the core of everything he does, and he is a father of 4, and so he understands the importance of a strong foundation. Hairul instills these principles in both his personal and his professional life, and extends his commitment to growth beyond office walls. He's genuinely interested in helping individuals and businesses flourish, and he's more than an accountant, he's an advisor, and he's a champion for you in your competitive industry. So Hairul, a quick hello and welcome to you. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Alicia, for the kind introduction. It's lovely to be here, and I'm very excited to be able to give you guys my 5 cents about what we need to do 30th of June.
Beauty. Thank you, Hairul. Thanks for being here. And our second speaker, some of you may know, it's Daniel Ouliaris, and he is the founder and CEO of Neo Intelligence. Daniel is a visionary leader who is seeking to make real change in the construction industry, specifically for subcontractors. He was formerly the owner of a Melbourne-based concreting business, and his industry knowledge runs deep. And with his innovative mindset, Daniel has created Neo Intelligence, which is here to address the challenges of the subcontractor industry and to empower subcontractors to be the best that they can be. Daniel's experience drives the development of the cutting-edge features of the Neo Intelligence operations management solution, and he also is a common face amongst all of our customers, and finds it really rewarding to work with our customers to build out their efficiency and sustainability of their businesses. Daniel, I'm going to hand it over to you and Hairul. Really looking forward to you guys having this conversation today, and hope that we can drive some value for the wonderful attendees who've made some time to sit with us today. Over to you.
Thank you, Alicia. Thanks for the intro, and Hairul, thank you so much for joining. I know you got a wealth of knowledge that you want to let our audience know about. But yeah, again, thanks for joining and taking the time for us, mate.
Of course. Thank you.
So, guys, look, we've got a lot to cover on this webinar today. I want to be upfront. I think it may run a little bit over time, but look, if it does, don't stress. We're recording this webinar, and we'll send you the recording so you can catch up. And you know, there's no surprise that it may run over time, because you know, Hairul's very passionate about helping businesses stabilize and grow, so they can set themselves up for success on concrete foundations. So I guess what I want to talk to at a high level is just the agenda that we have today, and this is something that Hairul has put together for us. It's going to be packed full of content. So we're going to speak a little bit about reviewing contracts and agreements. We're going to talk about verifying tax compliance. Also going to talk about reconciling accounts and invoices, claiming deductible expenses, and then at the end of all that, we're going to talk a little bit about how to plan for the new financial year and set the businesses up for success. Okay, so I guess moving to the next slide, Hairul, can you talk to us why reviewing contracts and agreements is so important to subcontracting businesses in order to set themselves up for success moving forward?
Yeah, 100%, Daniel. So firstly, let me just give you guys a bit of context where we try to be very proactive, right? It's no point being proactive by just planning and hoping for what the future holds for us. But to do a very proactive planning, what we need to be able to do is review what we've been doing in the past and understand how our foundations work. So based on this, the first thing that I would love for all business owners to do leading up to 30th of June is understand the contracts and the engagement that they have with their customers. So without even looking through profitability, looking at cash flow, looking at tax compliance obligation, we want to be able to walk. And to walk, we need to have a strong understanding about where our contract stands with our customers. Daniel, as you know, with being a contractor, this is where it really sets the foundation about how we generate our revenue. And hence why right here we have 8 key terms or items and matters that we need to be able to address to give us a tick when it comes to these housekeeping matters. It's as simple as the first one being verifying the scope of work. We want to be able to go through all our contracts to understand that the work that we provide our clients is what we've done. And in doing so, we understand that the invoices that we'll be invoicing or we have invoiced is correct. If the scope of engagement has changed, this gives us an opportunity to invoice more or understand where our revenue position should be in. Yeah. And from there, we understand that we need to be able to look at our payment terms. And as you know, as we're going into 30th of June, what we want to be able to determine is that where our cash flow should be. Understanding if we have 30 days, 45 days, 60 days, 90-day terms allows us to have a strong understanding how much money should we be collecting by 30th of June. And by knowing this information, we can actively manage our customers to ensure that these payments comes in before 30th of June. And if they're not going to be coming in 30th of June, we've got a data process to be able to ensure that we collect the funds in a timely manner. So those 2 key things are pretty much what I would love for us to focus from a contracts review position. And then from below that is more about the housekeeping. So where we review the tax obligation, ensuring that, these transaction has GST, or if it doesn't have GST, making sure that we understand where the notice periods are up to. If there is a change in the way that we engage with our customers, that the contract terms are updated. Verifying our insurance and liability is also very important. So say, for example, at the beginning of the financial year, we start off with like a public indemnity of 20 mil. But once we've reviewed all our contracts, we know that we're going to go over that 20 mil. This would then allow us to plan forward to ensure that our future indemnity and liabilities is fit for purpose. We know that in the subcontracting world, there is a lot of gray areas, and hence why it's always good for us to check our dispute resolution process. So if there are any gray areas where we need to be able to manage the relationship, we understand the terms and engagement in which we can proceed with. Lastly, because contracts can be quite intimidating for business owner, it's always good to get, our legal counsels, our solicitors, just to review to make sure that we are well aware of our roles and responsibilities in the way that we engage.
Amazing, Hairul, amazing. Thank you very much. And look, scope of works is definitely a common one that I come across, almost daily with our clients. So it's important to be clear on what the scope of works is for each project. That way, you know that you're not doing work that's outside of the scope, and that's coming off your bottom line. And payment terms, another big one, Hairul. We all know that cash is king, and especially in construction with 30, 45, 60-day payment terms, it's important we're getting that cash on time, because that's something that can really hamper a business growth.
Exactly, exactly. And the thing that we understand is that because we are in a very volatile period in the construction industry, having these active understanding about where our contracts are and who our customers are allows us to mitigate any future headaches that we may endure with these payment terms.
Definitely, definitely, definitely. All right, let's move on to tax and verifying tax compliance. And look, this is one of my one of my pet peeves, my experience in construction. There was a few unexpected, nasty surprises that I was hit with from the tax department. So can you talk to us about why this is so important for subcontractors and how to stay on top of this?
Oh, I'd love to. I mean, being an accountant, this is 24/7 what I live and breathe for, right? But so essentially, we understand that as a business, our key stakeholder is always going to be our customers because the customer drives our revenue and our profitability. But our second largest stakeholder is actually the Australian Taxation Office. So that's why for me, as a priority, leading up to 30th of June is for us to have a strong understanding about where our compliance are up to date. And this is where you would work with your accountants to go through this list of 8 items to make sure that we have a strong understanding about how we fare with the ATO. We might not be perfect, but at least if we have a strong understanding about where we are, we can manage the expectations of the ATO. Because there's too many times, too many experiences from my end where the ATO and the compliance can be an issue for a company moving forward, right? But it doesn't have to be an issue. So hence why leading up to 30th of June, what we want to be able to do is understand where we are at. And the first thing that we always look at and we try to recognize is the GST component of all our transactions. As we know in the building and construction industry, some contractors say they are registered for GST, but they may not be registered for GST. So the first thing that I always look at doing, don't worry about running, let's just try to crawl, and to ensure that all the guys that we are engaged with, if they're registered for GST, that it has been verified. And we can do this simply by just going onto the abi.gov website. Secondly, once we understand what our net GST position is, we want to be able to understand what our income tax liability could look like leading up to 30th of June. And this is where you'd probably want to get in touch with your accountants to be able to do some tax planning. So normally tax planning should happen between May and June. And what this allows us to do with business owners is to be able to understand what our tax liability will look at 30th of June and what we can do in this last 2 months or this last month about how to optimize our tax position. From these 2 points, the next 6 points is, again, it's still critical, but it's not as critical for us leading up to 30th of June, but it's more about understanding our payroll, FBT obligations, super guarantee, having the TPAR information readily available, identifying and verifying ABNs and TFNs for our stakeholders, as well as seeing if whether or not there are any audits or ATO notices that we need to be well aware of. But being well aware of our housekeeping matter from a compliance with the ATO perspective would go a very long way to set us up for the next financial year.
Very informative, Hairul. Thank you. And look, I could definitely relate to that. I guess going back to my experience, I can really, empathize with the uncomfort of negotiating with the ATO for a tax payment plan, and that was purely because I was not aware or not educated enough to know what to look out for coming tax time. So I think that's a big one.
And that's an experience that a lot of business owners has to go through. Mm-hmm. And again, having a strong understanding where you're at allows us to actively manage the expectation of the ATO. And that's all they really are after, is for us to be able to be 100% accurate with where we are and then manage the expectation. So that's why this particular exercise is very important leading up to 30th of June.
100%. And, I remember thinking back back then when I did come across these nasty surprises, I felt like I was the only one. But I think it would probably give our audience a lot of comfort knowing that they're not the only ones that are thinking these things and going through these issues. And it's a common problem that you come across. But there are ways to plan for it and make sure that you're not not caught in these uncomfortable situations.
That's right, Daniel. So really from this number 2 exercise, right? You don't have to do this alone, but essentially you need to have an expectation with your accountant to be able to go through this process, because it is a very important process.
Yeah, of course. It's all about partnering with the right partner, right?
Exactly.
All right. So let's move on to the next point in the agenda. So can you tell us why reconciling accounts and invoices is so important for contracting businesses? So like if we think about a concreting company or a civil contracting company, why is reconciling accounts and invoices so important?
That's a very great question, and you've actually answered it in those previous conversations where the term cash is king, right? Because what cash allows us to do is allows us to trade, but also allows us to be motivated by the profits that we're going to earn from the business activities that we are engaged with. For me, leading up to 30th of June, once we have managed the expectations or understand our 2 key stakeholders being customers and the ATO, it's really being able to verify and truthfully understand how we have performed in a business. So for me, leading up to 30th of June, it is so important that internally we have the right processes to understand that the data that we have right in front of us is timely, accurate, and reliable. Okay? Because by having these 3 confidence, it allows us to plan for future growth or future expansion or future management decisions. And hence why, for me, the third process that we need to be well aware of leading up to 30th of June is the reconciling of accounts and invoices, because this allows us to really, truly understand where our cash flow is, where it should be, and where it could be in the future. So working through with the internal financial team, your bookkeeper and your accountant, it's so important. I keep on saying everything that I'm saying in today's conversation, it's common sense, but we just have to make sure that it's done in a process, in a systematic way, right? So first thing is, obviously, let's make sure that all invoices are accounted for. You won't believe me, but a lot of businesses do take this for granted, right? So hence why with reviewing of contracts, we can understand that year to date, these are all the invoices that we've issued, and this is what we are entitled to from a revenue perspective. So let's have the expectations that all invoices leading up to 30th of June is accounted for. And once we understand that, then we look at the cash flow. Now we can understand to make sure that payments are correctly applied, because this will allow us to truly manage our cash flow leading up to 30th of June. And what this means is that we want to be able to identify outstanding invoices and manage that payment term. But more importantly, say, for example, if there has been disputes and there are debtors that aren't really paying, we need to understand why. And that's where we want to be able to apply credit notes, refunds as well, because by having this exercise, we recognize that we know what our true revenue is, which then can translate to a lower tax liability because of our taxable profit being lower. So having this exercise leading up to 30th of June gives us the confidence to know how we have actually performed as a business, but also mitigate any unwarranted tax liabilities.
Amazing. Well, look, I think that's a really great segue into our next section, which is claiming deductible expenses. So can you tell us, once a contracting business has reconciled accounts and invoices, how do they maximize their deductible expenses? And it'd be really great if you could talk to us about some examples of how a company can spend, during tax time in order to prosper for the next financial year. Yes.
Of course. So look, with the third exercise where we talk more about the revenue side. This exercise leading up to 30th of June is talking about all the expenditure and out-of-pocket costs that we've incurred for a business for us to continue trading, right? In its most simplest term is that what we want to be able to do leading up to 30th of June is identify everything that we have expense, it's going to be deductible. And how we make it deductible, it depends on the tax legislation, right? But again, this comes back to my 3 core beliefs is where we want to make sure that the information is reliable, accurate, and transparent. So it falls back on the onus of the bookkeeping and the accounting team to make sure that the data that we have is complete. By doing so, then we can apply whether or not these deductible expenses is deductible, it will give us tax benefit. So accuracy of data is very important. We know that with the ATO, they do like to foster entrepreneurships and give tax incentives and rebates. And depending on different businesses' circumstances, if you're working with a strong accountant, we will be able to make sure that we can maximize all the expenditure that we have incurred. So for example, to put into perspective, is that the technology investment boost. If you were to invest into a software like Neo Intelligence, the ATO would then allow us to have some form of rebate with that additional expenditure. More importantly, we have to recognize and we have to work with our accountants to understand what are the new changes that will impact us in a business. For example, Daniel, I love how you said cash is king. Right? We recognize that in the subcontracting industry, we do hold a relatively large payroll, and any changes into payroll can impact cash flow. And we recognize that in this new financial year, superannuation is going to be increased by 0.5%. That in itself can make a big difference in the way that we can forecast our profits moving forward. So this is the time leading up to 30th of June is to make sure that we have captured all the expenses that we've incurred and we apply it correctly based on how the ATO deem it to be correct and understand the impact of new tax changes that will flow through our profitability moving forward.
Amazing, Hairul, amazing. And yeah, you're right. Cash is king, and yeah, especially for subcontracting businesses where they're on 60-day payment terms. That labor that they're spending on has already come out of their pocket, right? So again, there's so many connections to what you're saying now to the previous slides we went through. Reviewing payment terms and making sure that there aren't too many invoices outstanding. Because it's a big risk for subcontractors holding that payroll liability. So there's a lot of great information there. And I think, look, all of this is pointing to one direction, right? It's the last point that we want to talk about, and that's planning for the new financial year, right? How do we set ourselves up as subcontractors for success in the new financial year? And I guess the common theme in this webinar has been it's all about planning, right? If we do the right planning leading into the end of financial, then we're going to have the best chance of succeeding and achieving goals in the new financial year. So can you talk to us a little bit about planning for the new financial year as a subcontractor and the things to look out for?
100%. So essentially, if we were to do those last 4 key exercises leading up to 30th of June, right? Yes, it's retrospectively understanding how we've performed, but that actually gives us the best data to be able to make some cool decisions about how we want to operate moving forward. Because essentially what we've done is we've been able to test the rigor of how the business has performed. And it gives us very strong information to work towards what the future may look like. Yeah. And hence why the first thing when it comes to planning for the new financial year is reviewing that last year's performance and doing those 4 steps. We've already done it intuitively. Yeah. By having this information and going through this experience and exercise, the team of managers or business owners can really set strong business goals that are achievable because we understand how we've performed historically. So Being proactive means that we want to understand that what we've done historically. And having this, being in this position allows us to cascade down these 10 key terms that we have in front of our slide. You know, setting up business goals and objective, developing a budget and forecast. All of this cannot be done without having a good understanding about how we've performed previously. And then from there, this is where it gets a bit more strategic, is where we need to be able to assess market trends and competition. And from there, we can update our strategies, right? So from review to ideal strategies for performance, once we've got to that position, we want to be able to make sure that we have an ecosystem that allows us to move forward. And hence why we want to be developing risk management plans and then stick KPIs into what we're trying to move forward with. And lastly, it's as simple as making sure that whether it's quarterly or it's biannually or annually, that we can document and review what we've asked for our organizations to achieve.
Amazing. It's all, look, yeah, I agree with you so much, Hairul. It's all about the metrics, right?
Yeah.
You know, developing the business goals and objectives, and then coming up with the key performance indicators that are going to get you there, but always being able to measure back to those KPIs and see how you're tracking, right, on a quarterly basis.
Exactly. Just having the data behind you, where the data is accurate and reliable, and with tested rigors, it gives you the best confidence to plan ahead for the new financial year.
Amazing. Look, we're a little bit over time. We're 3 minutes over time. So what we might do is we might move to the next slide and just talk to a bit of a summary of what we've gone through today. So number one, Hairul spoke to, you know, reviewing contracts and agreements to avoid potential disputes, ensure compliance, and protect your interests. He also spoke about verifying tax compliance to avoid penalties, interest, reputational damage, and ensuring a smooth and compliant tax season, which is one of my favorite topics. Reconciling accounts and invoices to ensure accurate financial records, detect potential errors or fraud, and maintain a healthy cash flow. And number 4, claiming the deductible expenses to reduce taxable income, lower income tax liability, and improve cash flow. And all 4 of these points are leading into the end goal, which is planning now at the end of this financial year for the new financial year to set your business up for success, right? So that you can navigate challenges with ease and achieve your goals, right? Whether it's growth, stability, or whatever it is, implementing new processes and systems within the business. So that caps off our webinar for today. Hairul, I want to just again thank you, very much for taking the time out of your busy day and sharing all of your knowledge with our audience. Yeah, thank you, mate. We really appreciate it.
Absolute pleasure, and more than happy to help. Love it. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Always a pleasure to have you, mate.
All right, I popped back. Hope everyone enjoyed that, and we do apologise that we ran over a little bit, but we're really pleased to have brought you so much great information. And again, just extending thanks to you, Hairul. Really appreciate your time today, and Daniel as well. Thank you so much for jumping in and hosting today. It was wonderful to have you guys chat. As mentioned, we have recorded this webinar. We will be sending that out to everyone who is registered. And I've also just got the contact details of both of us up here on the slides, just in case you have any specific inquiries or questions, and any of that Q&A that had come through.